Good morning, dear students. Tanvi, Janhavi, Aswini, Ruksada, and Palak. Good morning to all of you. So, we are going to continue with our lesson called uh, the hack driver. So, let's see where Bill or the hack driver takes Oliver's. Take the Bill or the hack driver takes the narrator. Okay, so now Bill or the hack driver will certainly take the narrator, like to meet Oliver's mother. Understood? To meet Oliver's mother. So let's see how it's happening, right? So you see, I know Oliver's mother. She is a terror. Bill's side. Bill is giving some information about Oliver's mother. So saying that I know Oliver's mother, she is a terror. I took a trunk out there for her once and she almost took my skin off because I didn't treat it like a box of eggs. She's about 9 feet tall and 4 feet thick and quick as a cat. Okay, so you can see now he is describing the characteristics of Oliver's mom. Okay, take Oliver's mom. She is very strict, physically built, very strong, physically built. Okay, and now he is telling the narrator one anecdote about Oliver's mother. Okay, so let's see what is this all about. What is this anecdote all about? Okay, good morning, all of you. Okay, so Bill or the hack driver says that um, she's about 9 feet tall and 4 feet thick. She is about 9 feet tall and 4 feet thick and quick as a cat, and she sure can talk. I will bet Oliver hard that somebody is chasing him and he has gone on there to hide behind his mother's skirts. Well, we'll try her. But you'd better let me do it, boy. You may be great at literature and law, but you haven't had real training in swearing. Okay, so here Bill assures the narrator that it is he who will be able to handle Oliver's mother. Okay, so whenever he will go to inquire about Oliver from his mom, the narrator should keep a distance. Okay, and he should not be visible. Okay, he should keep at a distance in hiding so that Bill or the hack driver himself can manage Oliver's mother. We drove into a poor farmyard. We were faced by an enormous and cheerful old woman. My guide bravely went up to her and said, "Remember me? I'm Bill Magnuson, the carter and hackman. I want to find your son Oliver." So the narrator is telling us that here my guide refers to Bill or the hack driver. So the narrator, this paragraph is narrated by the narrator. He says that they together went into a poor farmyard where they were faced by an enormous and cheerful old woman, right? And Bill uh, went up to the lady and asked her, "Do you remember me? I'm Bill Magnuson, the carter and hackman. I want to find your son Oliver." "I don't know anything about Oliver and I don't want to," she shouted. So see how uh, how Oliver's mom responded or reacted. She said, I don't know anything about Oliver and I don't want to know about him as well. Now, look here, we've had just about enough nonsense. This young man represents the court in the city, and we have a legal right to search all properties for this Oliver Lutkins. Okay, uh, so it seems um, now Bill will take some action. So he's saying this young man, that is Oliver, represents the court in the city, and we have a legal right to search all properties for this Oliver Lutkins. Bill made me sound very important, and the woman was impressed. Okay, so whenever Bill told this to the woman that uh, I have we have come to identify to locate Oliver Lutkins because he represents the court in the city and we have legal right to search all his property. And when Bill said all this, the woman was impressed. She retired into the kitchen and we followed. She seized an iron from the old-fashioned stove and marched on us shouting, "You search all you want to, if you don't mind getting burned first," she shouted and laughed at our frightened retreat. Okay, retreat means if someone goes behind, if someone instead of proceeding, if someone goes behind, goes takes the backward steps, because they became frightened when that lady uh, took an iron from the old fashioned stove, and she was marching she was proceeding towards them shouting. Okay, then the narrator and Bill both became frightened and they retreated. Okay, they stepped back. "Let's get out of here, she'll murder us," Bill whispered. And Bill whispered into the ears of the narrator, saying that this lady is very deadly, very, very frightful. She would certainly murder them. Outside, he said, "Did you see her smile? She was laughing at us." And then they came out. Instead of searching the property of Oliver Lutkins, they came out of the house. Okay, being very much frightened, they came out of the house. I agreed that it was pretty disrespectful treatment. We did, however, search the house. Since it was only one story high, Bill went round it, peering in at all the windows. We examined the barn and stable. We were reasonably certain that Lutkins was not there. It was nearly time for me to catch the afternoon train, and Bill drove me to the station. So, superficially, they saw almost all the places to trace Oliver's, okay, in his house. Like they've examined in the barn, in the stable, and they even searched him around the house. And then when they were pretty certain that Oliver Lutkins was not there by any means, then they decided to leave the house. And by the time it was time for the narrator to catch the afternoon train back to the town, so both of them came back to the station. Okay, so let's see what happened. We shall find out the way, okay, to see what is happening now. As you can see right here, on the way to the city, I worried very little over my failure to find Lutkins. I was too busy thinking about Bill Magnuson. Really, I considered returning to New Mullion to practice law. Okay, so while he was returning to the city, he was not very much concerned about the fact that he was not able to find Lutkins or trace Lutkins, but he was busy thinking about Bill Magnuson, because Bill Magnuson has impressed the narrator like anything, right? So the narrator became highly impressed by the mannerism, by the behavior, by the way Bill Magnuson interacted with him. Therefore, he decided that he would be shifting to New Mullion very shortly in order to practice his law there. Okay, so dear students, here you can see that the narrator was highly impressed by the hack driver, or Bill Magnuson. Okay, Bill Magnuson, because he was so jovial, cheerful, and the way he helped the narrator in finding out Oliver Lutkins was very much impressive. Okay, all the while, he was trying to engage the narrator, not leaving him room to think anything else. He was always interactive with him, and the narrator was very much impressed by the exuberance and by the majestic personality of Bill Magnuson, right? Then he says, if I had found Bill so deep and richly human, might I not grow to love Fritz and Gustav and 100 other slow spoken, simple, wise neighbors? Okay, so he said, uh, as I love Bill so much, as I have developed liking for Bill so much, so I shall certainly ignore the neighbors, okay, with all their faults, with all their weakness. Okay, I shall forgive all of them, like Fritz and Gustav, okay, because they are slow spoken, simple, and uh, I shall I shall love to settle down to New Mullion with the neighbors like Fritz and Gustav. It doesn't matter to me, provided I have Bill Magnuson with me, so I can easily settle down to New Mullion. I don't mind having neighbors like Fritz and Gustav. I pictured I pictured an honest and happy life beyond the strict limits of universities and law firms. I was excited. I had found a treasure. I had discovered a new way of life. Okay, he was very impressed by Bill Magnuson, and he wants to come down to New Mullion. Therefore, he was very happy. But if I did not think much about Lutkins, the office did. Okay, even though I was not worried about Oliver Lutkins so much, but my office did, because the office wanted Lutkins to come to the court. I found them all upset. Next morning, the case was coming up in the court, and they had to have Lutkins. I was a shameful, useless tool. That morning, my promising legal career almost came to an end before it had begun. Okay, because he was not able to trace Lutkins, therefore, might be his office was not pleased with his inquiry. So let's see what happens. The chief almost murdered me. He hinted that I might do well at digging ditches. I was ordered back to New Mullion. Once again, he was asked to go back to New Mullion, and with me went a man. Another man went with him this time, who had worked with Lutkins. I was rather sorry, because it would prevent my loafing all over again with Bill. And the narrator became unhappy, because this particular trip back to New Mullion would not be as pleasant as the previous trip. Why? Because in this trip he would be having the company of some other person with him, so Bill might not be in a position to give him as much company as he wanted, because of the presence of another man with the narrator. Okay, so let's see what happens. When the train arrived at New Mullion, Bill was on the station platform near his cart. Strangely enough, that old tigress Lutkin's mother was there, talking and laughing with Bill, not quarreling at all. From the train steps, I pointed Bill out to my companion and said, "There's a fine fellow, a real man. I spent the day with him." Okay, so from the train steps, the narrator was introducing bill to the man who came with him to New Mullion. So he said, the narrator said about Bill or the hack driver that that's a fine fellow, a real man. I spent the day with him. He helped you hunt for Oliver Lutkins. He helped you hunt for Oliver Lutkins? Yes, he helped me a lot. Right. So the man uh, understand the man knows Oliver Lutkins very well. The man who came with the narrator, he knows Oliver Lutkins very well, right? Therefore, when the narrator introduces the man who came with him from the city to that person, like introduces him to Bill Magnuson, then he says that uh, is this the person who has helped you hunt for Oliver Lutkins? And the narrator said, yes, he helped me a lot. He must have, he is Lutkins himself. So the man who came from the town with the narrator, he said, he himself is Oliver Lutkins. So how could he help you in hunting for Oliver Lutkins? He himself is Oliver Lutkins. What really hurt me was that when I served the summons, Lutkins and his mother laughed at me as though I were a bright boy of 7. With loving kindness, they begged me to go with them to a neighbor's house for a cup of coffee. I told them about you and they are anxious to look at you, said Lutkins joyfully. Okay? I told them about you and they are anxious to look at you, said Lutkins joyfully. They are about the only fox. They are about the only fox in the town that missed seeing you yesterday. Okay, so you can imagine the person who was taking the narrator everywhere to help him locate Oliver Lutkins. Eventually ended up being Oliver Lutkins himself. Okay, Oliver Lutkins himself. So how I told you there is a twist in the tail towards the end. So this is the twist in the tail. That is the twist in the tail towards the end of the story. So you might have understood now that Oliver Lutkins was very pleasant, very jovial, and very cheerful fellow, and he introduced himself to be Bill Magnuson, but he himself was Oliver Lutkins. So see, let us read once again. He helped you hunt for Oliver Lutkins? Yes, he helped me a lot. He must have. He is Lutkins himself. What really hurt me was that when I served the summons, Lutkins and his brother, uh, Lutkins and his mother laughed at me as though I were a bright boy of 7. With loving kindness, they begged me to go with them to a neighbor's house for a cup of coffee. I told them about you. I told them about you, and they are anxious to look at you, said Lutkins joyfully. About the neighbors, actually, okay, they are referring to the neighbors here. They are about the only fox in the town that missed seeing you yesterday. Okay, so it seems that even the Lutkins enjoyed the company of the narrator. Okay, so they might have narrated about the writer himself, and they felt interested to see him. So in either way, they loved each other. Not only did the narrator loved Bill Magnuson, who was Lutkins himself, but also Lutkins and his mother also seem to have developed liking for the narrator, and this is how there is a twist in the tail in the story. So dear students, you've understood, I suppose, the story. uh, Hopefully you are able to understand the story, dear students. So, how was Oliver Lutkins discovered? Oliver Lutkins was discovered by a person who came from the town with the narrator to help him identify Oliver Lutkins, because the man who came from the town, was Oliver Lutkin. The man who came from the town to help the narrator to identify Lutkins was able to, of course, identify when the narrator told him that the person whom you can see with a woman there is Bill Magnuson, and he is very very cheerful and jovial. Okay, so then immediately the man recognized that so-called Bill to be Oliver Lutkins. This is how Oliver Lutkins was discovered. So this is a very very interesting story, isn't it, dear students? Haven't you enjoyed the story? It's a very interesting story. I hope all of you have enjoyed studying this story. It's very very interesting, right? Okay. Now we have certain questions we shall discuss. Okay, whenever from the website you can study, and then you will write down some of the questions from the website. Okay, just write down some of the important ones, not all the questions. So let's first study here what are the questions given here. Say for example, it is given, when the lawyer reached New Mullion, did Bill know that he was looking for Lutkins? When do you think Bill came up with his plan for fooling the lawyer? Okay. Okay, then Lutkins openly takes the lawyer all over the village. How is it that no one lets out the secret? Hint, notice that the hack driver asks the lawyer to keep out of sight behind him when they go into Fritz. Right? So, dear students, I told you while narrating this story that there is a catch in the story. So, what is the catch? Like every time Bill Magnuson went to look for Oliver Lutkins, he did not take the narrator with him. Okay, he told him to keep out of sight, because if anyone happens to see the narrator, then they may not, or if Oliver Lutkins happens to see the narrator, in that case he might run away or get away. So that was the catch actually. Okay, because if the narrator went every time to the to Fritz or to Gustav's with him, and then he will be able to discover that Bill himself is Oliver Lutkins. That is why Bill Magnuson did not take the narrator with him wherever he went. He just asked him to keep out of sight behind him. Okay, so that is the reason actually. Next, you see, why do you think Lutkins' neighbors were anxious to meet the lawyer? Okay. Then, after his first day's experience with the hack driver, the lawyer thinks of returning to New Mullion to practice law. Do you think he would have reconsidered this idea after his second visit? Yes, of course. Let's see next one. Do you think the lawyer was gullible? How could he have avoided being taken for a ride? Actually, the narrator was a lawyer, so he was definitely gullible. He was impressed by. He did not apply his lawyer's mind actually, right? Because whenever Bill Magnuson or Oliver Lutkins told him to keep out of sight, whenever he went for inquiry about Oliver Lutkins, he should have immediately protested, saying, "No, I would like to come." Or he could have somehow managed to discover why Bill is trying to do like this. Okay, so that is from that point of view he was gullible. Okay, uh, so dear students, there are some suggested reading giving the questionable cargo, my last dollar, and Barton Bomic's ailment. Okay, so Barton Bomic's ailment. So you can go through these reference stories. Okay, these are also similar stories. Okay, there will be twist in the tale. Okay, so dear students, yes, thank you all of you. Let me wind up today then. Okay, so we shall study something else tomorrow. In the meantime, what you can do, dear students, you can go to my website and study the materials. Okay, and also write down later on, not now, later on you can write down the question answers also, right? So that's it for the day. We finished the story today. We shall start something else the next day. Thank you, Gungun, Asmita, Krishna, Anusri, Akanksha, Ruksada, Ayushi, Saurav, Shivam. Thank you, all of you. Thank you so much. Uh, yes, Korunya. Bye bye. Take care.